Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Samvaad-Talk series on the education and technology theme. Today, we have with us one of the pioneers in the field of education, Professor S.S. Prabhu, delivering the Samvaad-Talk titled Whither Technical Education During the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Today's session will be chaired by Professor Chetan Parekh, who is currently a professor at IIIT-Bangalore. Professor Chetan obtained his BTech from IIT Bombay and MS PhD from the University of Florida, all in electrical engineering. Prior to IIIT Bangalore, he has served as a faculty member at IIT Bombay and several other institutes. He has also been a visiting faculty at Purdue University and the University of Missouri and had a brief stint working at Motorola in Austin, Texas. His areas of research include analog and mixed signal circuit design. So over to you, Professor Chetan, now.
Thank you, Amrita. I was surprised at her introduction. I thought you just said Professor Chetan Parekh finished. This session belongs to Professor Prabhu. So let me read his bio, a very short bio. Professor Prabhu served IIT Kanpur from 1971 till 1998 as a faculty of electrical engineering. He also served as a head of the electrical engineering department and dean of faculty affairs. After that, he was a visiting professor at IIITM Kerala and then at IIIT Bangalore, so where he continues to serve as an academic advisor. His teaching and research activity has spanned control of distributed systems, electric drive, robot path planning, power system dynamics, and so on and so forth. Professor Prabhu did his BE from the University of Mysore, MTech from IIT Kharagpur, and he has an MA, SC, and a PhD from the University of Toronto. I have known Professor Prabhu for 6 years that I have been at IIIT Bangalore. And I think I know him less for control systems and more as a friend, philosopher, guide, as they say. He has such deep views, philosophical views on so many aspects of life that it is always a pleasure to have a conversation with him. And so I told him last week that I'm really looking forward to his talk today. So over to you, Professor Prabhu.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chetan Parekh, for your kind words of introduction. And thanks to Dr. Jan Iyer for this opportunity to talk in this forum. I've been in education for a long time. I've keenly watched developments in engineering education, especially electrical engineering education, over the past 60 years. I've been amazed at the deep and rapid changes during this period in the sciences and technology and how they have challenged engineering education. We have all been concerned about the future. How will things be? How will we design education for the future? How will we keep pace with the deep and rapid changes? What should engineering education really be for the future? I have tried to examine these questions. I stood back to look at things. I moved way back to see things from the beginning, when humans entered the scene. This was not very long back, really. If you consider geological times, or times when life has been in existence on this planet, it's really a very short time, a blink of an eye. But this time is about us. That's why it is important, and that's why it's interesting. It's also important because of what man has done to planet Earth. Homo is the name of the biological genus to which humans belong. There were several members of the Homo species: Homo erectus, Homo neanderthals, Homo denisovans, etc. Only humans are in existence. All others have become extinct. Humans are known as Homo sapiens. Sapiens means wise. So this means man devised. I really don't know if we deserve this epithet. Homo sapiens emerged on the scene about 200,000 to 300,000 years back. That's about 10,000 to 15,000 generations back in Africa. They emerged in the region which is known as the Horn of Africa. You have the Red Sea, you have Yemen on one side, Saudi Arabia, and on the other side, that region is called the Horn of Africa. That was the main region where they emerged. And they started moving out of Africa about 70,000 years back, 70,000 to 100,000 years back. The average brain size of humans at that time and even today is about 1,300 cc. It's the largest among the order of primates. Human beings have very special abilities. Now they are the only member of the genus Homo, as I mentioned. Now, what are these special abilities of human beings? They have complex cognitive functionalities: thinking, reasoning, remembering, classifying, logical and mathematical abilities, etc. No other living creature has these abilities to the extent that humans have. They have very complex and evolved vocal apparatus. This vocal apparatus evolved, it appears, for the purpose of enabling human beings to be able to develop language and speak. That's precisely what happened. So along with the highly evolved vocal apparatus, you have highly evolved language areas in the brain and interconnections to other parts of the brain. So language, speech, writing evolved over a period of time. They have a high level of social intelligence, and they have the ability to observe and learn complex things from other human beings especially, and they have the ability to teach complex things to one another. And they have the ability to understand intentions of and feelings in others. In other words, they have the ability for empathy. Now, what are these special abilities due to? Obviously it's due to things which developed in the human brain and in as I said, vocal apparatus of human beings, etc. So what we have is, to make us develop these unique human capabilities. This is what researchers have found. What we have are what are called mirror neurons. They are a distinctive class of visuospatial neurons. They respond to actions we observe in others. They fire in the same way as when we actually recreate that action in ourselves. For example, if I extend my hand and lift an object, there's certain mirror neurons which fire. And the interesting thing is that if I see another person doing the same action, the same neurons fire. It's as if I'm able to internalize the action of another human being. I can kind of, in a sense, copy his brain function to some extent in my brain, and this enables me to mimic him, and it enables me to learn things from him, etc. A lot of research work has gone on in this area. Mirror neurons were discovered by Rizzolatti, an Italian, in 1992. He named them as mirror neurons in 1996. A very famous brain researcher, William Ramchandran, said in a talk in 1995, mirror neuron system has played a central role in the evolution of Homo sapiens. All skills, abilities, learning, teaching, cultures, achievements, etc. are made possible by mirror neurons. I mean, one has to read more about this, otherwise things will not become clear. I suggest that you have a look at this paper that I've listed here, Mirror Neurons, Enigma of the Metaphysical Modular Brain. It appeared in 2012. It's an extremely well-written paper. And also you can hear William Ramchandran in his 1995 talk. I've given the link to that. Furthermore, Ramchandran also has a talk in the TED series. That's also extremely good. I suggest that you have a look at these things. Now, when did language ability start? This is difficult to estimate. There are a lot of ways of doing this. It's a big research area. And the general opinion is that it happened about 50,000 years back. That's when things started happening. Language development started taking place at that time. Till about 15,000 years back, it was rudimentary tool making and use. Up till that time, it was slow Darwinian evolution. And then, about 40,000 years back, sudden explosive changes started taking place. Very interesting. Till that time, the development was very slow. And this particular event, 40,000 years back, is called the Great Leap, the Big Bang of human evolution. What we see after this is development of technological sophistication, widespread cave art, clothing, stereotyped tools, dwellings, etc. The main question is why were human societies dormant for a very long time? More than 150,000 years, nothing really big happened. And suddenly 40,000 years back, things started happening. Big changes. What was the reason for this explosive change? Now, people have discussed this and they have said that it was because of memetic evolution. What indeed is memetic evolution? This term was coined by Richard Dawkins in 1976. I think in the book Selfish Gene. This is akin to the Darwinian evolution, but is much faster. A meme is an idea, a behavior, a style, a usage that spreads from one person to another in a culture. I plant an idea in another person's mind. He accepts it, he likes it, and he plants that idea in another person's mind, and so on. This is how it spreads. And memes evolve by natural selection in a manner analogous to evolution of genes in biological evolution. The main point is that memetic evolution is much faster than biological evolution, much, much faster. In so little time, our species has irreversibly transformed Earth's climate, landscape, wildlife, geology, etc. Huge changes, not all good, most of them bad. That's a different point. We'll come to that later. This is the result of memetic evolution. There is strong evidence that it was memetic evolution facilitated by evolution of the mirror neuron system, human speech apparatus and brain areas and interconnections, language ability, etc., that caused the big bang of human evolution to occur. The thing is that when conditions are right in nature, growth tends to become exponential. The present age is called the Anthropocene, the age of humans. So it's perhaps now clear that learning is ordained by the mirror neuron system. It's natural. Help is solicited to learn implies that there have to be teachers. So teachers emerge. Many highly complex abilities are picked up without teachers. Let's note this. Many highly complex abilities are picked up without teachers. For example, language. Language is picked up at a very, very early stage in life. And a baby picks up simultaneously several languages, an extremely mind-bogglingly complex thing. And it will not confuse one language for another. It's not just semantic, syntax, etc. It's intonation, it's the emotional content, the whole works. It is picked up in such a short time, and there's no teacher. So it's not necessary that there should be teachers for you to learn things. Anyway, that's beside the point. Learning and teaching become organized for a purpose implies that you have formal education. And how did learning activities, how were they for a very, very long time? And learning activities were for specific purposes, purposes which were of importance to human beings. So all kinds of trades, guilds, activities, etc., apprenticeship, learning in organized communities, passing on knowledge across generations. This is what really happened. You didn't have really any formal education system, but this is how knowledge developed. In agriculture, started about 12,000 years back. Crops, crop breeding, soil, fertilizer, seasons, irrigation, what have you. Domestication of animals, animal husbandry, smithy of all kinds, woodworkers, health, diseases, cures, procedures, and medicines, biomolecules, especially from the plant kingdom. Over generations, people gathered information, tried, and systematized knowledge. And cotton, silk, etc., spinning, weaving, cloth making, and so on, buildings and structures, all kinds of activities. But it was not formal education, it was education in this sense that I mentioned. And knowledge was passed on from one generation to another. And there were also people who were concerned about big questions. Who are we? What are all these things we see? Big questions about creation, its purpose, etc. And there are also people who said, how do we understand things? How do we analyze things? How do we look into the future? What is required? And so on. And slowly organized investigation into these matters gave rise to the sciences, mathematics, philosophy, what are the laws of nature, etc., modeling, prediction tools, what have you. And then specializations emerged, specialists, generalists, arts, performing arts, belief systems, religions, all kinds of things. This is how knowledge developed. Now, modern times, now I want to talk about the Industrial Revolution. That's the most important thing that happened in recent times to human societies. People recognize 4 stages of Industrial Revolution now. Industrial Revolution 1, 1780 onwards, it was all started with utilizing steam power, harnessing steam power for manufacture, transportation, etc., etc. Then 1870, almost 100 years later, was electric power, mass production, transportation, lighting, all kinds of things. This was when Industrial Revolution 2 started. Industrial Revolution 3 started 100 years after that, third quarter of the 20th century onwards, and it was centered on electronics, computer and communication, and a revolution which was brought in by these technologies. That was Industrial Revolution 3, and right now we are in Industrial Revolution 4, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Industrial Revolution 4 and education, technical education. So it started early 21st century, and essentially it's because of integration of digital, physical, biological systems, intelligence everywhere, etc. Now, Industrial Revolution saw the emergence of new technologies and technological enterprises, new industries, and these things happen because of developments in pure and applied sciences. Now, the rapidly expanding economies needed trained workforce, a specially trained workforce on a large scale. And this is how organized engineering technology education emerged. And then you developed all kinds of details like different types of programs, specializations, and so on. So civil, mechanical, mining, metallurgy, chemical, electrical, electronics, communication, instrumentation, what have you, all kinds of things. These things happen mainly during IR2, not in the beginning of IR2, somewhere in the middle. That's when things started happening in education rapidly. Now, rapid changes in technology was a hallmark of these periods. Rapid changes in what holds good today doesn't hold good 10 years later, and so on. So the engineering education had to rapidly adjust to changes happening. So rapid changes in curricula, emergence of new disciplines, etc., that had to take place. And this is memetic evolution at work. Now, at this point, it's interesting to see where were we at least in electrical engineering education. That's my area of specialization. So where were we during this time, IR2? ISC started its certificate and associateship program in 1915, BHU 1917, B College Shipur 1935, Thomason College, which became University of Roorkee in 47, and IIT Roorkee in 2001. It had a 3-year course in electrical engineering in 1897 and a 3-year course in telegraph engineering in 1893. And if you remember, if you note that it was in 1882 that the first central power station to supply power, electrical power to New York City was built, and you would realize that India really started electrical engineering education very early. These are curious facts. Now, I want to take you to what is happening today. So for that, I don't need to look at the early timeline and note the rapidity of changes. Now, there are developments which take place in pure sciences, and then concomitant developments in applied sciences, and then technology development. That's how it happened. And then, of course, education to prepare manpower for the technologies. Okay, electrical science, Coulomb was at, I've taken Coulomb as the benchmark. It was really the beginning of things. Till that time, there was nothing much which had happened so far as electrical sciences were concerned. So it was Coulomb, and the end point is Faraday. So 1785 to 1846, about 60 years. Faraday is considered to be one of the greatest experimental scientists ever. Anyway, so, and Maxwell, when these people stand on the shoulders of giants, and Maxwell stood on the shoulders of Faraday. Anyway, so Coulomb to Faraday is about 60 years. Note, from nothing, you have come to a fairly advanced stage, all in about 60 years. Then Faraday to Maxwell in 27 years. And Maxwell, you're right there, modern physics. That's where modern physics started, in a sense. He laid the foundation. All in a matter of 87 years, from nothing to a fairly advanced stage of development, all in 87 years. Technology development, electrical power, initial stages 1875, and a good level of maturity in 1925. A period of development of only 50 years. Technology development, electronics and communication, initial stages, I have arbitrarily chosen Morse as the initial stage, 1835. Maturity, I have kind of arbitrarily taken 1918, Armstrong's super heterodyne radio receiver as a benchmark point, 1918, a total period of about 80 years. These periods are not very long, mind you, because, from nothing almost, development takes place and arrives at a fairly mature stage, all in 80 years. So first degree programs in electrical engineering, power, were standardized in 1925 to 35. And electronics and communication engineering started late in 20s or early 30s. And then you had the Second World War, which delayed things, and it matured in late 40s. Now, look at what happened after that. Second World War happened, and Second World, things are bad with these wars, very bad. But one thing to note is that what they do to science and technology development in a very short time is phenomenal. Radiation lab in MIT, what it did during the war period, what it did to development of radar, for example, is incredible. So, I mean, if you do want to say something good about these wars, it is that they contribute tremendously in a very short time to development of science and technologies. People may differ with me, but I don't know. This is what I feel. So microwaves and radar, beginning 1935 in undergraduate syllabi by 1950. Look at the speed with which things happen. Transistor, junction transistor, invented in 1951, and rapidly after that, the other semiconductor devices got developed. And these things were in syllabi by mid-50s. Integrated circuits beginning 58, 59, and major influence on curricula in 10 years. Microprocessors beginning 1971 and major influence on curricula in less than 10 years. Personal computers introduced, IBM, the PC 1980, brought in large-scale computer usage in curricula and in applications in all kinds of domains in less than 10 years. I mean, the point that I'm making is that education has to very rapidly adjust to these things. And mind you, these developments are not kind of superficial, easy to digest kind of developments. They're deep. And design and teaching are not simple. And this is what happened. This pattern is seen in every area of engineering education. And if anything, during the present time, things have become a lot more complex. Because, as I said, when things are ripe, what you see in nature is exponentials, rising exponentials. Very rapidly, things happen exponentially. So I'll maybe go through this very quickly. I just wanted to put down things, the years, and just to kind of communicate the rapidity with which things happen. I have lived through this era, so I have a feeling for, so, okay. Now, during the same time, there were huge advances in theory, especially during the 30-year period, 1950 to 1980. I mean, we are talking about people like Shannon. We are talking about people like Norbert Wiener. We are talking about people like Kalman. All kinds of things in various areas. Huge advances in theory, legendary researchers and great achievements. Now, educators try to bring as many things as possible into curricula as early as possible. I mean, what they did is, hats off. Big challenges to education. These teachers were not exposed to these things. They had to learn for themselves, keep pace with the developments, understand, and then put it in a form that students can digest. This they did. Hats off. Now, there are conflicting needs and tensions in education. It has been engineering education. This has been seen right from the beginning. Analysis versus synthesis design. There's a very famous Grinter committee report of 1955, American Society for Engineering Education. They recommended a science-based engineering curriculum with humanities thrown in. And the emphasis there was not synthesis, not design, it was analysis. Much later, the educational community reacted and said, no, whatever they suggested was good, but now we have to bring in, the design culture, make students get exposed to how things are conceived, built, etc., etc. Theory versus practice, right from the beginning. The old education, it was the practice of engineering that was taught. How do you build brick walls? How do you build a dome? How do you this? How do you that kind of thing? How do you make surti mortar? So this is the way it was, and so the theory versus practice, basics versus tools, technology of the moment versus knowledge that sustains. Information versus understanding, systems perspective versus device component perspective, big picture versus detailed knowledge. And then, of course, everybody agrees skills for lifelong learning. Conflicting needs, tensions in education, but skills for lifelong learning doesn't belong there. It's a separate thing. Everybody feels that that's extremely important. Okay. And then tools. Engineering is full of tools, all kinds of tools. Tools for mathematical computations, tools for statistical analysis, tools for graphics, tools for complex circuit analysis, for structural design, for CAD in various areas, for continuum problems, electromagnetic, thermal, fluid, structural, etc., for system studies, power, water, energy, ecology, weather, manufacturing, chemical process, what have you. for virtual instrumentation, for software development, etc. It's all, we are kind of submerged in this world of tools, and they are very important. When I was an engineering student, all that we had was a slide rule. So, but then later on, the way things happened, and remember, a lot of it is because of the digital revolution. And then there were simulation tools for all kinds of applications. Some random examples: automotive system design and development, building architecture, enterprise operations, flight simulators, loco simulators, land vehicle simulators, virtual reality systems for medical education, electronic circuit simulators, mechanical dynamical system simulators, power system real-time simulator, power plants, etc. It's a huge lot of them. The point is that tools are often very complex and they're very large software systems that demand good knowledge of the domain to which they belong. Learning to use them is a non-trivial task. Tools often include state-of-the-art techniques, good knowledge of relevant tools essential in engineering practice. And if you have this knowledge, it's a big positive attribute if you are a job seeker. Engineering education is increasingly emphasizing knowledge of appropriate tools. I'm mentioning this because, how did engineering education develop? What became important, etc. And importance of the big picture. Engineers are people who build things, who design things, who build things, who maintain things, etc. And they really build very, very big things. All kinds of disciplines are involved, and then so the thing is, as a student, it's very important for the person to kind of absorb the big picture. What is this engineering, and where does it get applied? What are the big areas of application, etc. So it builds the relevance to whatever is studied, gives a glimpse of the modern scene, developments and trends, underscores the importance of interdisciplinary understanding, knowledge, and skills. Unfortunately, most curricula do not pay adequate attention to this aspect. This is my opinion, you may differ. And the things, engineers are people who design things, who build things. They are creative people. They innovate, and they work in teams, not a single team. They work in teams, and they work through projects, professional internship, etc. And these things are increasingly seen as an essential part of engineering education. What's the essential part? To make students develop their creativity and innovative skills, and how to work in teams, etc. Even as an undergraduate student, you must give an exposure to these things. It is seen to be important. And of late, not of late, it has always been important, but of late, because of certain reasons, we'll talk about that later, ethical reasoning has become increasingly important. Due to scale and complexity of proliferating technology applications and their implications on life and environment, you must talk to students about these matters. These things have to be there in the curriculum, in the syllabus. And working across borders in global workforce is a common thing these days. So our students must become aware of cultures, norms, etc. Now, the fourth industrial revolution, I gave that it started in the first quarter of 21st century, but then the term was coined by Klaus Schwab. He's the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, and he coined this term in 2016. He has written a book. I feel it's an important book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, published in 2017. It talks about what drives the changes which are taking place. What are the mega trends? Mega trends, physical, digital, biological, etc., in various areas. And what are the impacts? And what's the way forward? All these matters have bearing on education, so I feel it's an important book. Now, features of the Industrial Revolution 4 era, the era of digital revolution. is profound changes in technologies, exponential growth, compounding effects, rapid increase in scale, touching every aspect of human life. This is the kind of scene in which our engineers have to operate. Profound changes in technologies, exponential growth, compounding effects, one thing affecting the other, and so on, rapid increase in scale, touching every aspect of human life, unprecedented impact on all aspects of economic activities. This, of course, because of the digital revolution. Rapid obsolescence, what held good yesterday doesn't hold good today. Rapid emergence of new things in every aspect of human activity. Rapid changes in employment requirements, especially skills and expertise. Gig economy, changes in nature of employment, regular permanent jobs will decrease, part-time, contractual, short-time, limited number of days per week, etc. jobs will increase. Our education has challenges for coping with this reality. Now, of course, the main aim of engineering education, as I said right in the beginning, is to prepare students for the job market. Let this be very clear. I mean, it is for that purpose that engineering education got developed. It is to prepare students for the job market. Education, of course, also has the responsibility to prepare students for a career in research and development. It's very important. But because of one, we should not lose sight of the other. With explosive growth and emergence of new technologies, concomitant emergence of new specializations is inevitable. With rapid changes and obsolescence and emergence of new job requirements, lifelong learning and acquiring new qualifications are inevitable. There are no questions about these matters. But the point is, how will we make this happen? How will people acquire the required knowledge on the job, through formal certification, diploma, degree programs? How will teaching and learning take place? What's the scale of things? Scale of things is not going to be small. And there are big challenges. In passing, I thought that I should refer to what I felt was an important book, Higher Education in the Era of Fourth Industrial Revolution. It was very recently, published very recently, 2018, edited by Nancy Gleason, Palgrave Macmillan. It's an open access publication, so you can freely download it. That's what I did. And it's very interesting. Then I thought that in passing I should refer to an interesting invited paper of IIITB. 5 major shifts in 100 years of engineering education by these 3 authors. So an invited paper, Proceedings of the IIIT, this appeared in 2012, well, about 8-9 years back. So very interesting paper. Now, let's talk about educational reforms. Many reforms have taken place in the last quarter of the 20th century. This is when deep and accelerating changes have taken place, that we would have noted, and naturally there were reforms implemented during that period. One gets a good idea of the activity, one gets a good idea of what happened, the reforms, from the activities and publications of American Society for Engineering Education. I have been looking at papers there for a long time. I think it's a very good place. That's why I put it here. There's a huge amount of literature other than of ASE2. I'm very aware of it. For example, the IEEE article that I gave doesn't belong to American Society for Engineering Education. One important reform was set in motion by ASE 1955. I already talked about it. Report on evaluation of engineering education, the Grinter report. Essentially, science-based engineering education with good amount of humanities thrown in. Its impact is seen even today in our curricula. But by 1990s, the feeling emerged that science-based engineering curriculum overly emphasized analysis and theory, and that design synthesis had to be brought in a significant way. This has influenced curriculum design. A lot of papers about this. How can you do this? How can you do capstone project and so on and so forth, all kinds of. So this is what happened. The shadow of B.F. Skinner's learning theories and programmed instruction. Skinner is one of the persons who have deeply influenced me. Anyway, that's beside the point. The shadow of B.F. Skinner's learning theories and programmed instruction seems to be coming back in a change form. See Teaching Machines, The History of Personalized Learning by Andre Waters, 2021, MIT Press. We have AI tools, and we have a huge amount of computing power to enable us to adaptively personalize instruction and embed assessment so that instruction can adaptively change as learning proceeds. There's a big need for intelligent tutoring systems. This is still an area of research. Nothing concrete is available to us, but it's going to happen. It's not a small task, it's a difficult task, but it's going to happen. And the world is moving into the brave new world of AI, ML, robotics, etc. There will be big changes in the way solutions are decided. I mean, not just solutions are designed. I've used the word decided. There may be several options for you, and you choose one option. This is the best thing for us. This is my decision. So there are big changes in the way solutions are decided and implemented to all kinds of problems. Mankind has always wanted transparency and accountability, and rightly so. All societies, things have to be trustworthy, things have to be transparent, things have to be all right from various considerations. There has to be accountability. So this may not be necessarily true with these new technologies. I may get into problems because of this statement. Some of you may correct me and say that no, things are not that bad and so on, but I don't know. I would like to be convinced. This may not be necessarily true with these new technologies. This opacity has large implications. These technologies have to be ethically sound. This has become an important area of concern and study. I mean, what am I talking about? AI and ethics. So these technologies have to be ethically sound. This has become an important area of concern. There are courses now at graduate level, about ethics in the modern world of digital systems, digital societies. The implications of these technologies on labor market and social stability are also a matter of concern. What I feel is these matters will become an important part of engineering education. It may be sociology coupled with the technical matters, but engineering students have to be exposed to these things. You may want to have a look at this book, Understanding Artificial Intelligence, Ethics and Safety Guide for the Responsible Design and Implementation of AI Systems in the Public Sector by Dr. David Leslie from the Public Policy Program, the Alan Turing Institute, published in 2019, licensed under the terms of Creative Commons. I downloaded. I have a copy. Very good book. Not very big book, but I think it draws attention to important things. So then I have to make some comments at least on bachelor's level education, master's level education. What do I feel? The general education part will remain, HSS component will remain, but emphasis may change. Better exposure to the big picture and choice of career path. I think this has to come in. I'm sure it will come in. And in any case, our students are exposed to these matters because they keep wandering on the internet, and you have a lot of information about these matters, and I'm sure. And they also discuss among themselves with other groups across the country and so on. So I'm sure but then if we bring that into the curriculum, it would be good. Emphasis on mini projects and teamwork, emphasis on design thinking, freedom to enter specialization at an earlier stage. I think this becomes important because you have very limited time, 4-year undergraduate program, and the requirements of the job market are very severe. You want specialization there, freedom to enter specialization at an earlier stage, sharper and deeper engagement. This has to happen. I don't know how it will happen. Education designers have to work on this. More focused and well-integrated use of online resources in the blended learning mode. This is already happening to some extent. Use of intelligent tutoring systems not happened, but it has to happen. I'm sure it will happen. Examination and assessment systems will see a huge change. AI-assisted, computer-based, online, offline, what have you. The general, as I said, the general education part will remain. HSS, in a sense, will remain. And at postgraduate level, master's level, it will definitely be more focused, deeper, more state-of-the-art oriented, more state-of-the-art oriented and aware. And research focus for those who want to go for R&D career. So I'm sure a lot of activities will be there in designing these programs. Big trust in postgraduate certification and diploma programs. And we are seeing this here in IIITB, upgrad and so on. There's a crying need for this kind of thing. Not so much for the higher level qualifications, but at this level, diploma level and certification level, there's a big need. Large scale use of online learning and assessment, it's already happening. Closer interaction of industry and academia and education design, already happening, I think, to some extent. Big growth in continuing education has to happen, is already happening to some extent. Dwelling on contemporary needs and issues in a significant way, I don't know if it is happening, but it has to happen. Now, there's a very curious thing. I don't know whether it was appropriate for me to put this here. This is an advertisement, really. I picked it up from there, but it's okay. Indication of things to come, that's what I said. A recent advertisement from Skilling. This is what they say: 10 million jobs expected in the electrical vehicle industry by 2030. 5 courses to give your career a head start today. Look at the way they're attracting. So 10 million jobs. Who is not interested? Classroom programs at skill centers in, they have given names of cities. PG program in embedded systems for electric vehicle applications. It's not PG program in embedded systems for electric vehicle applications. Tuned. PG program in data analytics and data science. Here they have not said for what, but I am sure it is for the domain. Online programs, master's program. They are not a degree giving organization, but they say master's program, probably it is master's level program in electrical vehicle design and analysis. Masters in complete passenger car design and product development, master's program in hybrid electrical vehicle and design and analysis. NEET and IIIT partners with EdTech startup Skill Link to provide technical training. The global startup Skill Link is the first of its kind engineering technical education platform that provides job leading courses. This is a news item. That's a part of, no, that appeared separately, I think, not part of the advertisement. This is the way things will happen. There's a need, and see the. Okay, I think I'll maybe stop here. We have already moved into the brave new world of higher engineering education during IR4. Lots of work for educators. I've discussed that matter. Deep understanding of what is happening and design of education which is meaningful, sustains and delivers are of paramount importance. I just end by saying that let's hope for the best. Let's hope that all these things will happen very well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Prabhu. I think we can open this up for discussion now. There are two comments on the chat. Professor Prabhu, can you read the chat? There's one by Srinath and then one by Professor Dinesh.
I can't read it.
I'll read it for you then.
Okay.
Srinath said the quote-unquote industrial part of the revolution seems to be overshadowing the quote-unquote revolution part. Industrial is overshadowing the revolution when we call this the fourth IR.
See, the industrial revolution, I mean, we say it's a revolution for obvious reasons. We have been using this term for a very long time. Things happen on a very large scale in a short time, which affects society deeply. Okay, economy, society, etc., deeply. So it's not to be interpreted in the sense of social revolution, though of course, this kind of revolution has its concomitant effects on societies. Societies have to reorganize and so on and so forth. That's obvious. So I just wanted to say that these are huge changes which affect everything, which affect society deeply. Beyond that, I didn't want to say anything more. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Professor Dinesh says, in a 4-year program, a bachelor's program, try something extreme. The first 2 years specialization and the next 2 years generalized parts.
Yeah, I thought about these matters. There are various approaches to this problem. See, the general education part should not be missed. Foundation part should not be missed. It's extremely important. There have been committees which have looked into this problem, and they have got opinion from various groups across the world, all kinds of things. And ultimately, what comes out is, look, let the foundation be very strong. That's why I mentioned this in the tensions in education. So first 2 years, general education or whatever you call specialization earlier may not be good. That's what Professor Dinesh says. And 2 years general education part has to be there. I think that is probably how it will happen. So specialized years, how do you handle them? If it's electrical engineering, for example, there's so much of foundational thing there that many of us felt that 1 year is not really enough, to tell the story completely. But then, that's the way things are. That's why design of education is very challenging. Just 1 year of your ultimate area of specialization, concentrating on that may not be sufficient. I don't know how the educators will handle this problem, but this is one of the tensions, definitely. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Professor Prabhu. There is a comment now. I have a question from Dibakar. He's pointing to slide 27 in your presentation. Is it possible to go back to that slide?
Is the human brain system capable of meeting these requirements? If so, what percentage of people would be able to cope with these changes? Oh God. You know what? That the talk by William Ramchandran, the TED talk, I didn't give the link to that, but I just mentioned it in passing. An outstanding talk by an outstanding person. He says there's something like 100 billion neurons in the human brain, and each neuron makes 10,000 to 100,000 contacts with other neurons. We don't really know, whatever the mirror neuron system, so we really don't know how brain works. It appears that its capability is a lot more than what we think it to be. I mean, just imagine a baby, its mind is like what they call tabula rasa, totally blank slate, nothing is written on it. In a matter of a year, it picks up 2 or 3 languages. And language picking up is not easy. You know it. I mean, we don't understand these matters. And I'm sure the brain is capable. Okay. The thing is that if things have happened to your brain because of your experiences, sad, inhibitions and so on, you think that you are not good enough, you think that you are, this kind of thing that a lot of people suffer from, that true potential doesn't come out because there is so much of criticism at every stage in life. No, 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 don't do it, don't, because of that, I don't know. I believe that human brain is indeed capable of meeting these requirements. Okay.
Thank you for the problem. Prasanna has put a question. To what extent can we bring in day-to-day life into technical education? For example, force leading to acceleration.
To what extent can you bring day-to-day life into technical education?
Yes.
Force leading to acceleration. Oh God. Creativity of the person who teaches. So for example, I have asked this question of engineering students. How do you ride a bicycle? What makes you not fall down? And because of rote learning, somebody has said and we repeat it. We have not thought about the matter. We have not thought things through. They say it's because of gyroscopic effect. I said, gyroscopic effect? Are you sure? He said, yeah, sure. How do you show it? Now, he doesn't know how to show it. Then I say, so it's because wheels are rotating and there is gyroscopic moment and so on, and that's why it doesn't fall down. Is that what you said? He said, yeah. So then I said, okay, I'll lock the handlebar. Can you ride the bicycle? He said, no, I'll fall down. No, wheels are still rotating. Why did you fall down? He had no answer to that question. The point is that the person who teaches has this challenge to convey things in such a way. I mean, you have to take the background of the student. You have to make it understandable by him and so on. So it's difficult. It's challenging. I mean, do you know the kind of engineering which has gone into design of a bicycle wheel? If you remove the spokes, it gets crumpled for a small load. Now, because the spokes are in tension, it doesn't get crumpled. It can take a weight which is 10 times its own weight. And it has axial, stability, it's radial stability, all kinds of things here. And this has happened over a period of time, but nobody teaches. But it's important everywhere when you learn things at every stage. I think you should encourage students to stop and think, ask, and understand. Unless this happens in education, it's not going to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Prabhu. Anybody else has comments or questions for Professor Prabhu? Professor Prabhu, I had a question. We're seeing a lot of online and we're seeing a lot of technology used in education in the last 10 years, 20 years. One thing I feel that we are losing over the last 10 to 20 years is depth. The depth of understanding that students are achieving seems to be less and less over a period of time. And that is, to me, it is a serious worry. And I don't know how to address it.
But is it really true? I don't know.
Yes, sir.
Is it really true? I don't think so. There are very good students who understand deeply, very creative. They're going to become leaders of tomorrow in the sciences, engineering, etc. And there are such people. No generation has monopoly on capability, brilliance. It's God-given. And I don't think we have damaged that. It's still there intact. But there are a lot of people for whom this education doesn't mean a thing. And they are there because somebody else has told them that they should go through this program and pick up a badge. What can you do with them?
Yes. Yeah, Professor Prabhu, the question from Amit, Professor Amit's question is, how would you look at bringing in personalization that is factoring in the social context of the learners in online education and in massive open online courses?
Now, you see, this is the thing. Uh, Massive online courses, they present you information, knowledge, techniques, whatever, and you absorb, digest them, and to check if you have understood these things properly, there are assessments, etc. But the general kind of discussions that should go on between a teacher and his students probably is missing there. I think it's important, and how you can bring that about in online education is a matter which has to be considered by education designers. It's extremely important. In a classroom, I found, for example, when you take up such things, there's a section of people who think that, oh, no, these are all meaningless things because no question will appear in the examination on these matters. Even in IIT, I've experienced this. What are you talking about? Talk about something which is relevant. And relevant is something which is relevant only from the point of view of examination. So I don't know, Amit. I think as educators, we have to think about these matters. Should not be dictated by the compulsions of ultimately giving a grade to a student. So we have to examine him in particular ways and decide the grade and so on. So there's a lot more to education than that. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Professor, this is Amrita here. So, sir, I am asking a question based on my personal conflict as a teacher. So, how do we strike the balance between breadth and depth when we are teaching, especially to undergraduate students? Because as a teacher, I am always at conflict, as in which topics should I go in depth and which topics should I just focus on the breadth and I can just give a cursory high level idea. Is there any rule of thumb? I don't think there may be any, but any advice based on your experience of so many years?
You see some of the greatest teachers, okay? Some of the greatest teachers, you can pick up information about them from the internet. A lot of discussions about such people. They are not people who taught a lot, but they are people who taught, in such depth or something, foundation thing, that students later on, many of them became themselves really great persons. The point that I want to make is that what has happened now is accountability. Outcome based education. I have nothing against outcome based. You should be clear about what you're doing. So outcome based is important. But if it becomes some kind of a dogma, there's a problem. You must cover the syllabus from this end to this end, and you have to do it this way, and this should be the outcomes, and so on. So the whole thing becomes insipid. An inspired teacher, and often, I've read stories of teachers who are Nobel laureates, and the way they taught, they didn't care about covering the syllabus, but they cared about something else. Making the students to see visions, depth, and so on. And the other details, mundane details of the course, the students would pick up very easily. I don't think you can adopt it as a principle across, but if I'm a teacher, leave it to me to decide, how much of, don't penalize me too much because I left out a chapter or something, and a trivial chapter maybe. I don't know. I don't know. This is a difficult question. I think the educators have to decide. They have how to handle this question. It's an important tension. It's a tension really. Should I be very kind of sincere to what is dictated to me by curriculum designers? Very great, in very great detail, in outcome based. This was the one of the revolutions which took place in education development. After the 1955 thing, ASE, the next thing was the outcome based. And the third thing was this design oriented. And the fourth is what now we engaged in. Okay.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you so much.
Okay. If there are no other comments or questions, let me thank Professor Prabhu. I really enjoyed the bird's eye view over the last 40,000 years or 10,000 years. It was very nice it's nice to get a perspective like that. And thank you very much for presenting it in less than an hour, 10,000 years in less than an hour. So, and thanks to all the participants for wonderful questions and for being here.
So I would just like to thank the speaker of today, Professor Prabhu, and Professor Chetan for having kindly agreed to chair the session today, taking his time off his busy schedule. So thank you, sirs, for an extremely wonderful interaction and talk. So with this, we'll close the session for today, and looking forward to having everybody log in for the next Samvaad-Talk on next Monday, which is going to be given by Professor Amit Prakash. So thank you, everyone, and have a nice day.